Welcome to Dream River Digital's online training. In this second video, we are going to teach you how to enter in a client for the first time. If you would go ahead and put your username and ID in so that you can log into the system. That'll take you to the home page. There are two ways you can enter a client in. From the home page, there is enter or create a new client at the top right, and there's also a tab on the lower navigation which says add a client. Let's go ahead and click on that. You'll also notice that there is some basic information that does need to be put in here. The first and the last name of the client, the street and the city and the state, and the rest of the address information is not necessarily, but we do recommend it. We definitely recommend that you put a phone number in there because to communicate with your clients on the other end of this system, they will need to have a phone number so that they can get push and text notifications of events. Also, an email address is important for the clients so that they can receive their weekly updates and check-in status. Okay, let's go ahead and put a client in for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with a John Doe, which is usually a safe way to go. And for a street, we'll be entering in 1234 Main Street. No street. Additional street information, and the city, Midvale, state, Utah, and the zip 84093. And a phone number, again, we say is important that you put this in here. We're going to go ahead and put a generic phone number in, and then of course an email address for John. And again, we're going to put in something generic for now. The start date we'll put for today. And status is active. The type is male. The counselor will put in Dream River. And the relationship is single. For the client ID, this does need to be unique. It will not accept it unless you put something unique in. So I'm going to go ahead and put in John44 as the client ID, and then John's password. I'm going to go ahead and put in his initials, JD, and then the street numbers on the street address 1234, and click submit. If all this information is correct, the system will go ahead and set up John's account. And this does take just a moment because we are entering, when you enter an account in for the first time and you're entering the client in, it's also generating the daily and weekly check-ins for that person. In the second window here that you'll see for the demographic information, we have support information you can put in here. If we're going to have a sober support or maybe a coach or a counselor that we want to add information on, or a family member that would want to be receiving reports about John's progress, with his permission, of course, we can go ahead and enter that in. John does have a sober support, so we're going to put in that name here, which is Sally. And it's important that we put in the phone number or the email address so we have some way of sending the reports to Sally regarding John's progress. So I'm going to go ahead and put an email address in here, again generic like before, and then I click and check that I do want to send Sally weekly reports on John. That's all for the sober support or the additional contacts we want to have in here. You could also put a contact in for a judge or a parole officer or anyone else that would like to be getting information on John's progress on a weekly basis. Drug of choice up here. John has had an issue with opiates and alcohol, but primarily opiates. I didn't have an idea to identify his strengths. Well, John is motivated. He's definitely committed to his program. He does have family support. And currently employed. John's in fairly good health, and we'll put those down for strengths. And then weaknesses. John is definitely having some financial issues associated with his addiction. He does do some diverting and reflection, and he has had some chronic relapses, so we're going to enter that in as well. As far as the diagnosis, I'm going to leave those blanks, but if there is a DMS diagnosis that needs to be entered in here, either behavioral health or a medical condition that you do want to have, just for reference, you can go ahead and do that. And then I'll hit submit. And once that's done, voila, John is entered into our system, and it goes to the case management page. And what we see here at the top is John's name, his start date, and then his status. And then we also have at the bottom a week at a glance, which means that John now can be set up to go ahead and begin to do his daily and weekly check-ins and also interact mobily through his phone or tablet, whichever he decides to use. You'll see that nothing is completed as of yet, and of course John has just been entered in. So that's how you enter in a client for the first time and get them set up in the system. If you go now to the tab on the bottom which says My Client, we will go ahead and see that there is John Doe. He's been entered into the system. If we go ahead and click on that tab, it takes us to John's page. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add a quick note here. John was entered into system on 5/14/13, and I'm going to save that note, and then of course it'll show up here on the left. All right, so in this video we've shown you and trained you how to enter in a client for the first time. In our next video coming up, we're going to show you how to create an event or an appointment with that client and show you how that comes up in your calendar, and also how to text or message them that they have this appointment coming up. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.